I'm Becky Hammer. I work at the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, and I'm an attorney there, and I work only on water, mostly stormwater issues, and particularly here in DC, where we all live and work. And before I get started, Chris wanted me to mention that, not just NRDC and Earth Justice and DC Environmental Network, but lots of groups have been engaged in this effort for a while now. Going back a couple of years when we first heard about this proposal from DDOE, DC Appleseed, who's represented here, Clean Water Action, lots of other groups, Anacostia Watershed Society, the River Keepers, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. So this is a big effort. We got lots of people that care about this stuff. And of course, DDOE has been so awesome in keeping our community in the loop, really reaching out to us. They've had tons of training sessions and briefings about these regs, so we want to thank them for being so open and really including us in the process. So I guess first and foremost, I'll just do a really quick summary of what are these regulations. I'm sure the DDOE folks in the back will be cringing because this is like a 1-minute summary that leaves out a lot of the cool details. Why is DDOE doing these regs? It's a requirement in the city's new stormwater discharge permit that was issued by EPA last year. That permit said that the city has to develop new stormwater regulations that require new development and redevelopment projects within the district to retain runoff, stormwater runoff from storms up to 1.2 inches, which is about the 90th percentile storm in DC, which means during 90% of all storms, these sites would not let any stormwater run off of the site. And this is, they can do this by infiltrating stormwater into the ground or have it be taken up by plants. You can capture it in a cistern and reuse it. There's lots of different ways you can keep stormwater on site, keep it from running off, entering the sewer system, and polluting our rivers. So the retention requirement is kind of the basic requirement of these regulations. But what's really new and cool and interesting about them is that DDOE's developed this first-of-a-kind credit trading program. So if you're a regulated site, if you're a development, after you do at least half of your required retention volume on site, you can make up the remainder by buying credits off of a market that DDOE is going to create and operate. And a credit is a gallon of stormwater runoff retention for 1 year. And where do the credits come from? If you're a site that's not regulated, you're a property in the district and you're not developing or redeveloping, so you don't come under the regulations, you can go ahead and put a retention practice on your property anyway, like maybe a green roof, a rain garden, a cistern, anything like that. So you've created retention capacity, and then you can sell that as credits to regulated sites that want to buy the credits to fulfill their compliance obligation. And then the last piece of the puzzle is that you have a third option if you're a regulated site. You can do it all on site, you can buy credits, or you can just pay a fee to DDOE. It's called a fee in lieu of compliance. And that's a flat fee based on the number of gallons that you're not doing on site. And DDOE uses that money to go out and do projects themselves. So that's kind of the basic framework of the regulations. These regs are a really big deal. Stormwater pollution is one of the main reasons why our waters here in DC are so messed up or impaired, is in the lingo. These regulations are going to, really make a big difference in going forward as our city redevelops, changing the whole paradigm of stormwater management from, letting stormwater just run off into the sewer, into the river. We're really changing the way development's going to be done in DC. We're going to, with the new focus on retention. And this is really a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The current stormwater management regulations were done in, I think, the late 80s, so really 25 years ago. So whatever's in these regs, we could have for another 25 years. So it's really important to get it right, to make them the best they can be. And then looking even outside of DC, this trading program is really innovative, really the first of its kind, and we are expecting that other cities and communities across the country are going to be looking at DC, and that this could be used as a model nationwide. So, just to highlight how important these regs are, not just for DC, but for like water quality across the country. So if these regs are done right, they have the potential to have huge benefits for the district. The basic requirement of retaining stormwater on site, first and foremost, that's what this is all about. It's going to reduce pollution. It's going to reduce harmful stormwater volumes going into our rivers and eroding stream banks. The water quality benefits, over time as properties redevelop, could be very significant. The trading program is interesting because it's going to bring in sites into this new retention system, kind of sites that wouldn't fall under the regulations otherwise. It's going to bring them in by creating an incentive for already developed sites to retrofit with these new green retention practices, because they can sell those credits for money. It's going to create a huge driver for this to green the entire city, to have these practices installed over a larger area than you would have otherwise. And a lot of these practices have benefits that go way beyond water quality, especially the ones that use vegetation, like green roofs, rain gardens, trees. Plants filter pollution out of the air. They reduce the urban heat island effect. Not something that we think about on a cold day like today, but in the summer, it can make a difference. They insulate buildings, so they reduce energy use. They create habitat for animals. They are beautiful, so they improve property values. And because they need to be maintained, they create green maintenance jobs that last into the future, as opposed to building a tunnel, or a pipe. That's kind of a one-time thing, and then those jobs go away. But if you have a green roof that needs to be maintained, that's a job that lasts into the future, and that's a benefit to our city's residents. And then I guess another potential benefit of this trading program is that it is more flexible for the regulated community. They have these options. That being said, we have to keep in mind what the goal is here. This is a program that first and foremost is designed to improve our health and environment. We can't, we don't want to sacrifice too much of that good result in the sake of creating flexibility and making it super easy for
Tony Robinson.
Hello.
Hey, Tony.
For the regulated community to comply. So we do have, there are just a few aspects of the proposed rule that we are concerned about. And, I just, want to say that we hugely...
See Mr. Suderman's question? I don't know, but...
Hey, guys,
can you
on
guys
the phone?
Can you guys mute yourselves?
Mute your phones, please, if you're listening. Thanks.
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 So we really respect the innovation that DDOE has shown in coming up with this program. They've really kind of just created this from scratch, and they are really committed to achieving, good results, a good program that's workable, that's good. Their hearts are in the right place, but it's our job as the environmental community to, push them to do even better, to achieve the best environmental results they can. So there's just a few aspects of the program that we think have the potential to undermine some of the benefits that I just described. So I'll just go through those quickly. We submitted written comments on these regulations that are on DDOE's website if anyone wants to read them in more detail. They're pretty wonky, so keep that in mind. But the bottom
And inspirational, too.
Thanks, Chris. But the bottom line is that these regulations do have to comply with the requirement in the city's stormwater permit that is the whole reason these regulations are being done in the first place. And the permit says that these sites have to retain 1.2 inches of stormwater from a 24-hour storm. And an off-site program is allowed, but as the total volume retained has to be the same as it would, at least the same as it would be if it were all done on site. there's a few aspects of the regulations that by trying to build in flexibility, we think might lead to like less than that amount of stormwater actually being retained, or, aside from volume, just other maybe undesirable consequences. One of the concerns we have is with timing of basically when a credit is generated and when a credit can be used. Basically, the draft regulations don't place any restrictions on this timing. Like, credits don't have to be used within any particular time. So you can generate or buy a credit and hang on to it basically forever and use it in satisfaction of your compliance obligations at any point in the future. So this, could lead to a number of different scenarios. I won't go into in too much detail, but the bottom line is it could lead to situations where maybe in one year you've got a whole bunch of retention occurring, but maybe in another year you have a lot less because while the number of credits out there is, they're still being cashed in every year, that doesn't necessarily correspond to the same amount of actual real-world retention. So that's kind of not what we want to see in the long run. We want to see long-term, consistent stormwater retention that's going to protect our water bodies over time, not a fluctuating amount of retention that, maybe might lead to, some practices being removed or not being maintained over time. Another concern we have is regarding the geography of the program. So the draft regulations don't place any restrictions on the relationship between where in the district a credit is generated and where, the regulated site buying that credit is located. So as you all probably know, we have multiple watersheds in the district. Some of it drains to the Anacostia, some of it drains to the Potomac, some of it drains to Rock Creek. And what we're worried is that, some of these projects might get clustered in one watershed or another, and our water bodies might see uneven environmental benefits. The draft regulations propose to allow properties to generate and sell credits from retrofit or retention practices that were installed as long ago as 3 years ago, and we're thinking that might not really lead to the amount of retention that we want to see beyond baseline conditions when the regulations are actually finalized. And also by putting these credits out on the market for things that already exist, it's going to drive down the demand for new retrofit, new credits. And what we want to see is the city being greened, more retention happening. So we don't want to artificially inflate the supply of credits. I'm just trying to pick and choose here. We are a little worried about how DDOE is setting the price of this fee in lieu of compliance that regulated sites have the option of paying. So that's going to be a flat fee, whereas the price of credits will fluctuate because they're going to be bought and sold on a market. The fee in lieu of compliance that goes to DDOE is just going to be a flat fee that they set. And, that fee is going to be used for DDOE itself, or maybe through contractors, we don't know, to go out and actually install practices themselves. And DDOE is, a government agency. They have resource constraints. They have time constraints. So, we want to see that as maybe more of a last choice option for regulated sites to lower the burden on DDOE. If the price of the fee in lieu is set too low, developers are going to find that to be the easiest option, and they're all just going to end up doing that instead of, going through a private market. We also want to make sure the fee is just plain high enough for DDOE to actually go out and install the practices they need to install. So that just goes to our general concerns with, how DDOE is going to administer this big, complicated, potentially costly program in the first place. They're going to have to go out and inspect and just inspect all of these practices to make sure they are being maintained every couple of years. That's going to be a big effort. And kind of most importantly to us, we want to make sure this program is run really transparently. We think that there should be, some sort of real-time online website where people can go on and see, who's generating credits, who's buying credits, where are these projects located. And that's really in the interest of people who want to participate in the market as well. If they can get real-time information, it's going to help them make the best decisions. So those are kind of some of our main points. Going forward, there's going to be another draft of the regulations this spring with another comment period, so we'll get another bite at the apple then. But the regulations have to be finalized by July 22nd of next year, because that is the deadline in the city's stormwater permit.